So one of the key questions I think a number of us were waiting for was clarification on who actually has to provide these certifications, who has to stand up a research security program. And in the draft guidance, it called for institutions who had more than $50 million in annual federal science and technology support over a 2 fiscal year period. And that if you were part of an interconnected network, so sort of a large university system with multiple campuses, it would sort of be individual organizations within that network. You'd have a year to come into compliance once the rules were finalized, but you had to give sort of a public status update after 120 days. There were also some references to needing a single point of contact and indications that the self-certification could be done via sam.gov. And now I would say the rules are looking a little bit different, and by a little bit, I mean completely. Just about everything has changed in some measure. So now you're, you're in if you are an institute of higher education, a federally funded research and development center, or a nonprofit research organization, if you have more than $50 million in support over 3 years. So, on average over 3 years. And now we have, in the initial guidance, they suggested looking at usaspending.gov, but also looking at your own financials. Now they've wiped out that concept and have given specific sources that they want you to look at for purposes of determining whether or not you hit that $50 million threshold. And those are the NCECS surveys that are available. It would have been perhaps more helpful if they told you specifically which data tables to look at. So we'll do that for you. We think the answers are 17, 33, and 44. This is not bingo, but it feels like it a little bit. So those are the tables that you need to look at. Although I think there's still some question as to, even within those tables, what columns are to be used. And I say that because there's references in the language now to federal R&D obligations. And when you look at those charts, there is an R&D column, there is an R&D plant column, there are other columns, and then there's sort of total support. And they don't indicate which of those columns you're supposed to be using. I think I would have gone initially with total support, but for the fact that there is a footnote that for non-academic research organizations, the right columns are R&D and R&D plant. So I'm hopeful that we'll get some further clarification from the agencies as to which columns they want us to use. And the reason I point that out is it does make a difference. If we use total support, the FY22 numbers would put 7 or 8 institutions over the $50 million threshold. If it's not, and it's just the R&D column, they are substantially under that $50 million threshold. And so while it may only be at 10 or 12 institutions on an annual basis, that is a big deal if all of a sudden you've got to sort of work towards complying with all the infrastructure that's necessary here. But however you count it up, it looks like there will be somewhere between 150 and 200 organizations that will be covered institutions. They've changed the definition too from covered research organizations, but 150 to 200. Curiously, there's also no more reference to sort of a uniform self-certification using sam.gov. And in fact, we're told that certs can be either in writing or electronic. And that individual agencies will have some measure of decision-making available to them on how the certifications are made and perhaps what the language of the certification is going to be. So I think there's still a lot to come on that front. And then now no reference to needing a single point of contact. I think that's sort of part and parcel of the desire to incorporate more flexibility into the standards in the final guidance. And the 120-day public status update has disappeared, and I'm sure no one is crying over that one.